the whole saying. Looks nice.
Dr. Rock, I enjoyed that the symposium.
Oh, good.
I didn't realize it was going to last till 6 o'clock.
Okay, guys, we're almost live.
Okay.
I know, but
Okay, we're ready.
it's not showing live yet. There we go. Good evening, and welcome to the February 17th regular board meeting of Warrensville High City School District. Dr. Rock, can you please call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Freeman? Mrs. Gator? Mrs. Moomin?
Here.
Mr. Roberts?
Here.
Miss Mitchell?
Here, all are present. At this time, can we take a moment of silence as Member Gator recites the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are going to move on to item 1.3, which is the approval of tonight's agenda. May I have a motion on the floor to approve the agenda? But before doing that, Dr. Rock, Mr. Jolly, are there any changes to the agenda? Board, any additions to the agenda?
No.
All right, may I have a motion on the floor to approve the agenda for February 17th regular meeting?
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the agenda for February 17th, 2021.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
It has been moved and properly seconded. Dr. Rock, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Gator?
Yes.
Mrs. Moomin?
Yes.
Mr. Freeman? Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Miss Mitchell?
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Thank you, board. Next on the agenda is item 1.4, approval of the minutes. Need a motion on the floor to approve the minutes for December 10th and through the 12th, 2020, which was our board retreat, December 16th, 2020, which was our regular meeting, January 6th, 2021, which was our organizational meeting, and January 20th, 2021, our regular meeting.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the minutes for the dates as you stated, December 10th through 12th, December 16th, January 6th, and January 20th.
Thank you. May I have a second?
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. Dr. Rock, can we please call the roll?
Mrs. Moomin?
Yes.
Mr. Freeman? Mrs. Gator?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Miss Mitchell?
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Next on the agenda is item 1.5, public participation. Mr. Jolly, did any public participation emails come through today by noon?
No, ma'am, we did not receive any public participation emails.
All righty. Thank you very much. As a reminder to the community, if there are requests for public participation, please visit the district website and obtain the information to submit an email to that website with your information, what you'd like to speak on, and ensure that it is received by noon on the day of our school board meeting. Next on our agenda is item 1.6, Mr. Jolly, superintendent reports.
Yeah, I have a brief report today. Let me pull it up.
Okay.
Real quick. The majority of my time I want to cede to Steve and Doug. So, real brief report today. Today was vaccination day. We have 54% of our staff was vaccinated today. The second dose will be on March 10th, 2021. We do have employees who have been vaccinated from different entities such as the VA. Some of them have went to their private doctors. So that percentage, 54%, is a lot more than what we did today. So today, 54% of our staff, it was over 161 people. It was a few people who weren't on our list that went today to the vaccination. And it all happened between 11 o'clock and 11:40. Most of our people were in and out. I give a lot of kudos to the ESC, Dr. Jennifer Dye, who was the facilitator of all the districts in Colgan County. It was an outstanding setup, and our staff went through and relatively well. And these are some of the pictures. Principal Bishop, our second and third grade teachers, and Miss Harris in first grade. So our work session, I just wanted to give a brief update. Our work session, we have a lot of topics to discuss in our work session. I want to talk to the board about our fourth grade intervention for grades K to 8, our fourth quarter intervention for grades K to 8. And basically what we're going to do is just describe how the fourth quarter is going to look with the learning loss that we've had. Our staff and teachers have came and said we need to do some things different. So we'll be coming with a comprehensive plan on how that's going to look in the fourth quarter. And basically, what we're going to do is give each child basically their own individualized education plan and help them catch up for any loss that they might have. One of the things that I've heard and seen from our teachers is that writing has suffered tremendously during the pandemic. So we have to do something to address writing. If you think about it, kids have been typing for a year and haven't been writing. And if you think about a kindergarten or first grader, and you put ourselves as a kindergarten or first grader, we wrote our name every single day when we went to school. Now it's typed for a whole year. Didn't have that practice. So that's just one area that we see some deficiencies. But basically what we're going to do is look at what each kid needs to know by the end of the third quarter or by the end of the year and try to provide them with the resources they need to be successful. The next is the extended school year. We did do a presentation on that earlier. Right now I'm working with the unions to come up with some type of MOU to extend the school year 17 days. And this would be an extension of our intervention for our scholars. So more details will be coming soon. Modified school year calendar. We have not approved the calendar for next year. We're working with our unions to discuss how we can add more instructional days next year. So that is a process, and we'll be able to bring that calendar, hopefully bring a preliminary calendar to you about for next year. We do have to negotiate that in negotiations with WEA because this is a contract year. The next one is the facilities, the middle school transition. So I'll have more updates on how that's going to look, when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen. We're working on that. The facilities community discussions, I did send to the board that we're having our first community discussion in March. I will have a full calendar with the topics going to be. I am working with Councilwoman Andrea Mitchell, who will help co-facilitate that our first Eastwood meeting. And then the facilities content auction, the things that we have inside of Eastwood, Westwood, and John Dewey, we'll have a plan on how we will discard some of those things, and really not discard them, but auction them off like we did this Randallwood site in preparation for what's next. All the furniture in Eastwood, Westwood, and John Dewey, we have all new furniture here in this building. But we also got to look at future growth, and we have also look at possibilities of bringing all students back and how social distancing things will look. So by then we'll have a comprehensive plan on some options if just say we are overcrowded here and what school we might need to maintain for another year. So I'm working on all of those different plans, and I just wanted to just share with you the work session. We'll be discussing all of these things, and I'll be giving information up into there so that we can have a very robust discussion on how these things will look moving forward. So that is my report. No, we haven't been in school since last Thursday. We had the snow day, professional day, we had a compulsory day, and then we had President's Day. So our first day back to school will be tomorrow for our scholars.
Oh, they're not even in school.
So at this time, is any questions?
Board, are there any questions?
None, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Hearing none, Mr. Jolly, thank you for a good report. I'm looking forward to the work session in March so that we can learn more about what will be happening to take care of our students as we move into whatever decisions are made regarding extended school year. Next on our agenda is item 1.7, the treasurer's report. Dr. Rock.
Yes, for my report, it's going to be Steve Zanoni and Doug Myers providing an update on the agenda items tonight and further items on segment 2. That's the new high school and middle school.
All righty, thank you. Good to see you gentlemen here with us this evening.
Thank you. This is Steve Zanoni. I'm really going to hand it off to Doug. He's done an excellent job. He's going to give you a update on where we are in the project. Plus, we have 2 requests for our agreements with the architects and engineers, and then also the commissioning agent. You may recall we may have brought these in front of you, but at the time we brought them in front of you as only a portion. And at that time, we thought we were concerned about the state not co-funding us or coming late with their money. They have come back with their money. So now we have to really do the true agreements. And so I'll have Doug go through those too. So Doug, I'm going to hand it over to you and you can walk us through the agenda. Doug, are you on? Did we lose Doug?
Great, thank you. Yeah, we can move right on. And then as Steve mentioned, we have a request for Moody Nolan for the request for our commissions. Keep going to the next one. So as a program update, we are completing our construction documents. They're going to be completed tomorrow and issued to the team. So we are going to be sending them out for bid. As we've talked before,
Looks like he's having some struggles with his broadband.
Doug, I'll continue. We're completing the construction documents. As Doug said, we'll have them tomorrow. We're starting those negotiations for the Warrensville use of the maintenance facility as a bus garage facility. We have developed some move plans.
We're working with Warrensville to look at using their, we're developing
we lost
a
you,
move
Doug,
plan.
for a moment. Just so you know. Right.
Okay.
Go to develop move plan with middle school. You still there, Doug? Or is he frozen again?
I think he's.
I'm still, Steve, if you want to take it over, my internet's going in.
Okay,
in and
I'll
out.
take
I
it over.
apologize.
Okay, that's not a problem. We're developing move plans for the middle school, which Don spoke about. We're in that process. We are starting, as you remember from our last meeting, the design of the athletic complex and the bus maintenance facility design. That's pretty critical for that negotiations with the city of Warrensville in terms of understanding what we need for at that facility. And we're also putting together the documents for the abatement and demolition documents for the middle school, Westwood and Eastwood, and the elementary schools. Now, this doesn't mean that we're going to do the demolition, but we do want to get those documents done so we can keep the project moving forward, go out for bids, and then determining based on these move plans for the middle school, we'll make a decision at that point in time. But we feel it's important to just keep everything moving forward, that we don't lose any time when we do make a decision, that we have everything done and bid out. If you can go to the next slide. As you can see, the construction documents this week, bids are due mid-March. We're going to have the GMP, which is the guaranteed maximum price, similar to the elementary school. We're going to spend 2 days in March 25th and 26th with the entire team to make sure that we are buying everything that we need to buy. And also if there's any savings, and we can buy also some of the alternates. We anticipate board approval that we would bring this GMP to you on April 7th, 2021. Just so you know, we want to make, we will have the state, we would not bring in front of you something that the state hasn't, even though they haven't officially approved, but their administrators have approved. And this allows us for starting a construction in spring. We're real pleased. We got all the work necessary to get the site ready. And yes, it's under snow right now, but we're ready to move quite quickly in the spring. And what we'll be doing is we'll start with the foundations. If I could have the next slide. Okay, we're going to ask from you is basically two pieces of an agreement. They have the Moody Nolan AE agreements, and the agreements for service associated with segment 2 agreements for $2,374,232.30. This is for all the pre-construction work, which includes the schematic design, the design development, the construction documents. It also includes additional services of testing, surveys, traffic study, and landscape. It also includes their reimbursable expenses, including printing, lead, and planning fees. And if the memorandum of understanding with the state was issued to allow the design to start without delaying the project, this required us to divide the services into design services, which is this for 2.3 million, and construction services. So the next slide will show you what their construction services agreement will be. This is an amendment because of the way this all came about, because of the issue with the state. We wanted to get everything moving forward, is for $1,702,922.70. The scope is for the GMP proposal and amendment and construction administration and closeout. So this is for work that we're actually happening right now. One of the things I would note that we don't pay these out. If you saw, we haven't even paid them the first portion. We pay those out months later after we're assured that all the work was properly done. These also, there are some additional services in this amendment, which include surveys, demolition, the abatement design and hazardous material surveys, the testing and balancing. So for all those demos that we were talking about, this is to do all of that work also. Again, there are reimbursable expenses, which include plan approval fees and special inspections. This is the completion of the agreement that was not executed under that last MOU. So we need to have this done. And as you can see, it becomes two agreements. If you can go to the next slide, Don, you can see we have this initial agreement of the 2.3 million. We have the amendment, which is 1.7. And then we have the total is $4,077,155. Now you can see the co-funded, and these numbers weren't put together just solely by us, but also by the state. The co-funded value of the work that you in these two amendments is $2,722,988. That's the amount that the state and ourselves as a district are co-funding. The other is because we're doing a lot of locally funded initiatives, which is like the large gymnasium, different elements in the auditorium, things such as the planetarium. Those are not things that are co-funded. So we call those locally funded initiatives. The stadium isn't, and that's their fees are $1,354,167. Those we pay 100% as opposed to the co-funded piece. If you can go to the next slide, before I leave the architects, why don't we go back one slide if you can, Don? Are there any questions before we go to the commissioning agent?
Are there any questions, board? It doesn't sound like it, Steve. Please.
Okay. All right, I'll go forward. The next slide is we also have the commissioning agent. I think you all recall when we had a commissioning agent on the other project that was Osborne Engineering. At this time, we're using Four Seasons Environmental. The reason is Osborne Engineering is actually our engineers of record for the new middle school, high school. So we can't have the same firm doing both commissioning and the design. Now, This commissioning agreement is a requirement for our co-funded. It's totally co-funded. And the reason is it's part of the state's requirements to get LEED certification. And part of LEED certification is an independent commissioning agent. This agreement's for $162,605.10. And the scope is during the design stage, they've been doing narrative developments. Even though we haven't signed the agreement, they've still been doing all of this throughout the design stage. The construction stage, they do pre-functional testing, functional testing, reporting and testing. And then after our post-occupancy, they do a correction period. They'll do trend reports. They also will do an 11-month inspection of all the owner's systems. And then they will look at all the manuals in the final reports. And this is a standard we had at the other project. We had the same, we also had these types of services. Also, I do want to say all of these fees were negotiated with the state and are all within the framework of our budget. These are not higher than anything that we budgeted originally for this project. Any questions? Okay, so we are also going to make some modifications to some of these agreements. We're going to remove the scope from Moody Nolan's agreement for the bus maintenance facility and athletic complex. If you recall at our last meeting, we said we were going to use O Sports, who are very good at this. So we will create an additional agreement with Moody Nolan and district work associated with the bus facility and athletic complex. We really need to separate that. It'll still be with Moody Nolan, but we will be coming back with that. And then when we will be coming back to you with the GMP for the high school, middle school. And once we sign that GMP, we start rolling and we start moving forward on the project. Any questions, next steps? And here we are. This is the design, as you can see, and it's pretty exciting. We've been in front of planning commissions. We've worked with the city in terms of entries from Northfield. There's been a lot of great work that's been developed for all of this. And it's pretty exciting, this whole program. I think there's another, and I believe that's it. Are there any questions?
Just want to confirm, so April 7th, we need to make sure you are on the agenda so that we can approve the next GMP.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, I will tell you this, if we don't agree to that GMP, we're not going to present it in front of you.
Okay.
So this is tentative. And that sometimes happens. It sometimes takes a little longer, or we want to get some other things into the project. So, but tentatively, we've been looking at April 7th as the date. Thank you. But as always, we would always present to you a document prior to to your meeting and put that in your board docket.
Madam Chair, I do have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Steve?
Yes.
Can you hear?
Yes, I can.
As far as the athletic facility, are we using that same company to do everything, to do the ball fields and the stadium?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are, Ray. And they're very well qualified. They're considered one of the best in the nation, O Sports. They are a division of Osborne Engineering. They're already part of our team. And they've done most of the stadiums in the Cleveland area. And they've been doing this for such a long time. They did the original stadium for the old municipal stadium, was actually designed by them. They're an old established company and really are very, very well qualified when it comes to athletic facilities.
Thank you so much. That's it, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for a good presentation, very thorough. And if there are no other questions, Dr. Rock, was there anything else that you needed to include in your report?
Nope, that covered all of the items that we have that are on the agenda.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Can we then have a motion on the floor to approve by consent agenda the treasurer's report and financial recommendations for item 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3? Thank you.
I second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Thanks to the both of you. Is there any further discussion, board? All right, hearing none. Dr. Rock, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Freeman,
Yes.
Mrs. Gator, Mrs. Moomin,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Miss Mitchell.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much, board team. Next on the agenda is item 3, and we need a motion on the floor to approve by consent agenda superintendent's recommendations and presentations for board action certified staff, and this would be items 3.1 through 3.4.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept as a consent agenda items 3.1 through 3.4.
Thank you. May I have a second?
A second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Before I go to the board, Mr. Jolly, is there anything that you wanted to say about any of these items?
Well, I could just say that Pam Hughes is coming in. She's a long-term serve. You all know Pam Hughes, and she took Miss Irving's position, who was promoted. And then the credit recovery is standard, what we do to help students catch up. So those are standard, and those are the selections from the high school.
All right. Board, is there any further discussion on these items? Hearing none, Dr. Rock, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Gator,
Yes.
Mrs. Moomin,
Yes.
Mr. Freeman,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Miss Mitchell.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Next on our agenda is section 4, and we need a motion on the floor to approve by consent agenda superintendent's recommendations and presentations for board action classified staff, and that would be items 4.1 through 4.3.
Madam Chair, I move item number 4 on tonight's agenda, the consent superintendent's recommendation and presentation for board action classified staff. I'm looking for items 4.1 through 4.3.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I second.
It's been moved and thoroughly seconded.
Thoroughly.
Board, is there any discussion? Hearing none, Dr. Rock, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Moomin,
Yes.
Mr. Freeman,
Yes.
Mrs. Gator,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Miss Mitchell.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Next on tonight's agenda is section 5, and we need a motion on the floor to approve by consent agenda superintendent's recommendation and presentations for personnel and programs. This would include items 5.1 through 5.3.
Madam Chair, I move item number 5 on tonight's agenda, the consent superintendent's recommendation and presentation for personnel and programs. Looking for items 5.1 through 5.3.
Thank you, sir. May I have a second?
I second.
It has been moved and properly seconded. Board, is there any discussion on any of these items? Hearing none. Dr. Rock, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Freeman,
Yes.
Mrs. Gator,
Yes.
Mrs. Moomin,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Miss Mitchell.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Next on our agenda, we have some unfinished business. And has Cheryl joined us yet?
Yes.
Awesome. We are going to welcome to our meeting Ms. Cheryl Ryan. She's a member of OSBA School Board Services, and she's going to give us a presentation on our strategic planning and new member orientation guide proposals. If you guys recall, we discussed this at our working session a few weeks ago. So Cheryl, it's good to see you. Don't think I've seen you since the new year. Happy New Year.
It's good
And-
to see all of you.
Hey, Carol.
Long time no see, actually. But, you know,
Absolutely, absolutely.
it's really good to see all of you. You're looking very well.
Through the
It's
cold.
interesting to see everybody in masks and not your typical gorgeous smiles, but I'm just going to assume they're there.
They're there.
So if it's okay with you, I am going to share my screen because I have just a few slides for you.
Yes, ma'am. Go right ahead.
Okay. So I'm hoping tonight that, can you all see that?
Mhm.
Perfect. I'm hoping that we can, this can be mostly a time for you to ask some questions and for me to hopefully confirm or take care of anything that might still be a question for you. So I was told that we should talk a little bit about strategic planning, either in part or in full, and then also talk a little bit about handbooks. So that's what I've done here. And we'll just move forward. Anytime you want to interrupt me, please do. And I'm just starting with these quotes because I just love this. Ben Franklin's grandmother. And who knows whether or not this is really attributable to her, but I like to think maybe. And they both just talk about focusing on the end game. And as board members, you're often charged with dealing with things that are happening today. But we hope that in a normal situation, you are also able to look down the road at what might be coming. And that is the real reason why we do strategic planning. So we hope that a good plan, and by the way, I just want to say, for those of you that are, I think there's just one board member that I haven't met personally, but we worked together on your last strategic plan. And we had a large group of community members. We met at a beautiful facility and had just a very great buy-in from a lot of people on your current strategic plan. And that plan was kind of a soup to nuts, vision, mission, goals. We talked about objectives and sent you on your way with a template, which I've actually shown to other districts as an example for how to go about implementing a good strategic plan. But a good strategic plan should help all board members and administrators stay on the same page about how you are going to guide and allocate resources. Now, not just monetary resources, but whether it is staff, whether it is tools, whether it is resources such as buildings or facilities. Strategic plan helps board members and administrators remember and keep very focused on what we all said was important, what the community said was important, what our stakeholders said was important. And so I always am excited when I attend board meetings and I hear board members say things like, our goals say this, how does this speak to our goals? Or our vision is this, how does this speak to our vision? So it helps really keep you all on the same page. It helps build upon current successes. So a strategic plan should never be about giving your already taxed staff and your already taxed administrators more work to do, but it should help all of you say, we know this is working in our district. We know this is a gap in our district. I think a lot of districts right now are struggling with trying to understand just how much of a learning loss there has been due to this pandemic that we all can't wait to be out of. But the reality tells us that, I'm sorry for the dog. She gets excited when she sees new people. So we all realize that there are going to be learning gaps and our students are going to have suffered some loss, and we're all doing our best to mitigate that now, but we can build upon the successes. We also all know too that the pandemic has helped in some ways. We all know that we can turn on a dime. We all know that we can be much more flexible than we ever thought we would need to be or that we want to be. And a strategic plan helps guide decision-making at all levels, because everybody from the bus driver on up knows what the board and the district goals are. And it serves as a roadmap for future success and sustainability. One strategic plan builds on another. So when I talked with one of the board members about your interest in a strategic plan and sent a proposal, was told that you all were talking about whether or not you just needed pieces or whether you wanted to jump with both feet into a total revitalization of your current strategic plan. So I just wanted to add a couple of, I think, the benefits of either of these. We're happy to work with you either way. A full strategic plan usually involves a lot more community participation. And Mimi, you and I have joked before, Ray, you and I have in past years talked about there's good things about full community participation, and it makes some things more difficult, more bodies, more opinions, more perspectives, and it takes a little bit longer to find that consensus. A partial plan, you might do just with board and administrators. You might choose select members of your boosters or your parents groups or a ministerial group or something like that and have them at the table. A full plan builds in lots of monitoring and evaluation processes and creates a whole thread of timeline and work. It does take more work and it costs more money. Another advantage of a full plan is that we usually use 2 facilitators, and those facilitators work between each meeting as well as at each meeting to process the work and get the group ready for the next work date. A partial plan focuses on the things that you tell us you need most. We like our vision. We'd like to rethink the goals. We like our goals. We're not sure our mission, given what we've learned in the past 2 or 3 years, is still relevant, that kind of thing. A partial plan does save time and money. There's less facilitator work between meetings, and there's usually less meetings, which means less money. So in a full plan, these are the groups, the solution groups that we try and form. The design team is usually the board. The core team is everybody that comes to the meetings. The action teams are staff and administrators that take over the work once it leaves the community groups and moves into the school buildings. District administration, usually the superintendent is critical at every point of the way, as is the treasurer and the board. And so these are the processes, the roles that they serve, and the purpose that they serve in a full strategic plan. Again, you've received our proposal, so you have lots more detail there. So I'm going to stop there before I go on to handbooks and just see if there are any questions in particular about strategic planning that you still would like me to answer.
Madam Chair, I do have a question for Cheryl.
Go right ahead.
Hi, Cheryl. How are you? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too.
Quick question. As far as, I know you said the full and you're going to go into the partial, but the full, is that more actual manpower from OSBA? Like more people to facilitate it? Or?
I would say there's a relatively more. There's 2 facilitators at each meeting, 2 facilitators that confer between meetings and communicate with your group. And usually we have a support person too.
Okay. Thank you.
The partial plan, depending on what you would say, we'd like 1 workshop focused on this, or we'd like 2 workshops focused on this and this. Usually 1 facilitator would manage those sorts of workshops. So it's definitely a difference in manpower.
Okay.
I have a quick question. So Cheryl, who would you recommend if we went with the partial plan? Who would you say should be part of the core team? Is that just the board and the administration? What do we have community members? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, it's totally the board's call on that. But
Okay.
Normally when we do pieces of a strategic plan with the district, I'll just tell you what we normally see.
Mhm.
We normally see the board or a few members of the board, superintendent, treasurer, a couple of administrators.
Okay.
So I would say 10 to 12 people, depending on the size of the district, the number of school buildings, that kind of thing is what we would usually see.
Right, because if I can, this is just to build upon what we have already, see what we've not met, determine what we need to keep from the first plan, and then add to that. Now, I know the first strategic plan, we had, I believe, 5 tenants. And should we, as we continue either building on or, moving items on or off, should we begin to decrease our number of goals and then build goals where we take deeper dives into what needs to be done? So, for example, because of the pandemic, academic achievement is really crucial right now. So because of that, should we maybe see what we've met with other goals? Because I know we've met some of our other goals, and then just pull those that we've not met and then hone in on those to build out the variables that we'll need to put into place to make sure we can meet that goal with the dates of how much by when.
Yeah, I think that those are all excellent questions. And I think what I would suggest doing if you opt for a partial plan is that we talk first about how relevant you all believe the current vision, mission, and goals are.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe there's a goal there that is less relevant today. Maybe they're all still relevant, but the priorities are different.
Mm-hmm.
It usually in any strategic plan, there's something that's more front burnered than something else. And so we would want to talk about that. So I would say we would definitely want to refresh and reinvest in your vision, mission, and goals. Refresh, reinvest, possibly revise. And then from there, move to strategies, and certainly some analysis of strategies from the first plan that have been begun or finished, completed, what worked, what didn't work, that kind of thing. So I think those are all good questions, but I would probably definitively want to start with making sure the foundation of the plan, which is your vision, mission, and goals, are still the ones that all of you believe are the right ones.
Okay. One more question for you, and thank you for that. You said a little bit earlier that you sent the proposal to us.
I think so. Did I?
I was digging through my email. I
thought
don't
I
see it.
sent it to you. I'll forward it to you. I'm sorry. I
Okay.
thought I sent it to you.
Thanks.
And if I'm mistaken and I didn't send it, Mimi or Tracy, just let me know.
Yes, we sure will. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I did want to add that my team has looked at the goals, because a lot of the goals are what drove in our work, and we'll be able to update on our progress on all those goals. I can say, like with facilities, we've achieved all the goals in the facilities area. So in the other areas, we still, we have some things, and we'll be able to report all of that out at the work session. That's what I omitted from the work session conversation.
Thank you, Dr. Jolly. And one thing I would say, referencing his comment, is a lot of times the strategies and the objectives that you all envisioned within those goals are completed, which kudos to you if that's the case for you, as Dr. Jolly says. But the goal still stays the same. For instance, you had one of your goals was a student achievement related goal. And you probably will continue to have a student achievement related goal, but all of you will have to step back and think about which new strategies you want to try and take on related, or which that bar is going to continue to increase, or the finish line is going to continue to move out, whichever analogy you want to use. But the goal may stay the same. And then again, you may decide that there's something that isn't in the old plan that needs to be in the new plan. And I will tell you that what we saw in the last 4 or 5 years is most plans had something to do with social emotional learning. That became sort of a front burner kind of an issue. And now what we're seeing is the front burner issues are about equity, And a lot of those issues are present in strategic plans, and whether or not those issues are important in Warrensville Heights and whether or not they work into one of your current goals or whether they need to be standalone things would be part of that good conversation. Anything else?
I think that's about it.
Okay. All right. Well, I just have a couple things on handbooks because we were taught. So board handbooks, these should be a companion to your policy manual. So if a board handbook is done well, and they're typically, we're trying to do ours now digitally and build in links in the handbooks that are exactly mirror the policies you have in your big fat manual. But they include the pieces of practice and process that board members find most relevant most of the time. So a board handbook typically has included in it policies and practices related to board protocol, to the way your board meetings are produced and run, to your practices around electing and nominating a board president, to parliamentary procedure, the things that board members want to have at their fingertips most often. And it might have something in it about board member orientation when you bring a new board member onto the team. It could talk about things like that. So they're companions to your policy manual. They are not new or added things. Sometimes when we've done a board handbook, the board has wanted something in the handbook that wasn't in policy. And then we have a conversation about, is there a policy where this can be included? They're really easily revisable. If they are digital and online, as is your policy manual, when you revise a board policy and you just basically change that link in your policy manual, it updates the one in your board handbook, etc. And they're a great tool for board member orientation. I have seen some districts provide copies of their board handbook to candidates even before they're elected to the board, so that candidates have a much clearer picture of the role of the board once they get on the board. We do handbooks for boards, for employees, and in transportation right now are our current lineup of handbooks. But my understanding is you're interested in a board handbook. So that's what this is. Now, the other question with the OSBA handbook is just, should we have a facilitated handbook or not? The biggest difference is, again, time and cost. So with a non-facilitated handbook, we would send you an electronic template, and that includes a table of contents and some basic template knowledge that the 5 of you, with assistance from your superintendent and treasurer, could build in. The facilitant, if you use it facilitated, one of us would come to you and sit down with all of you, and we would ask questions, and we would begin to do that filling out and that drafting for you based on your wishes and on your feedback. We would send a review back to you. You would probably go over it at a board meeting, or maybe you'd form a committee to look at it, a 2-person board member committee, and you go through it and say, more here, less here, change this. This is not how we do it in Warrensville Heights. This is what we want, etc. Send it back to us. We'd produce a final draft, and eventually you would approve it at a board meeting and put it into practice. The non-facilitated is basically the same process minus us. You would do the drafting and the writing. You would present the editing to your full group for review, and you'd produce a final draft, or perhaps some staff member in the central office who you allocate to the process, and then the board would approve it. So that's basically the difference. The facilitated handbook would probably be 2 meetings with somebody from OSBA coming to you to help you with that draft and with the final. And you would end up with a new board handbook. We advise that a board handbook is something that should be looked at and reviewed maybe every 18 months. Some boards that use a board handbook review it every 2 years. So every time they get a new board member face, it's here's our board handbook. And now that you're a board member here, it would be a great time for all of us to sit down and just look at it and make sure it's still the way we want to operate in Warrensville. And if there's something that's uncomfortable or not relevant anymore, we redo it at that time. So I would say every 18 months to 2 years is a great time to look at that document again.
Thanks, Cheryl. I have a quick question. If
Uh-huh.
if we go with the facilitated route, about how long would it take to produce it? I know you said 2 meetings, and then what would be the time for the first draft?
I have done board handbooks in a month.
Okay.
So a lot of that is your ability to meet, and whether or not you want the full board to meet and it's another meeting, or whether you want to, designate a couple of you to work with the facilitator, or, how you want to go about doing that. But I would say anywhere from, 3 to 5 weeks is probably kind of reasonable.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
We have set up 2 board members to work on it to make the process easier. Then they'll bring back to the board for review and editing or what have you.
Great. Other questions?
Not for me. I guess just a comment to the board in general. I personally would prefer the facilitated process where they come in and help us. I remember Miss Barbara had some concerns about, us doing this. I know OSBA puts out a handbook. You know how you do the school board members handbook. Can you just kind of explain what the difference is between that handbook and what we're doing?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, and I never have been asked that before, so thank you. The handbook publication that we publish is basically kind of a best practices for boardmanship book, but it's not unique to the district like a Warrensville Heights handbook would be. The Warrensville Heights handbook would be about, it would have a reference in it, for example, to public participation. But the language in it would be very particular to Warrensville Heights. How long you allow members of the public to speak, whether you allow members of the public to speak without providing a name and address, that kind of thing. So those are the kinds of questions that a facilitator would ask so that he or she could round out your draft for you.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. Thank you. So it's just more specific to us and how we operate as a board, function as a board.
Yeah, in some ways it's well, not in some ways. In a lot of ways, it's a handy subset of your policy manual.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else?
Board, if there are no other questions or comments, I would like to thank Mimi and Earl for the preliminary work that they've done to look into this and getting you on the agenda, Cheryl.
My pleasure, yeah.
And having you join us tonight. And as soon as we make a decision as a board, we will be in touch with you to let you know which direction we're going to move with both the strategic plan, the next phase of it, as well as where we're going to, which direction we're going to move into for our new member orientation guide.
That works for me. Thank you so much for having me. And Dr. Rock, I'm loving the locks, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much for having me, and I'll look forward to hearing from you soon.
Thank you.
Cheryl.
Take care. Stay
Bye-bye.
warm.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
All righty. We don't have any new business. There's no, Dr. Rock, was there any correspondence?
No.
All righty. Any announcements, Mr. Jolly?
No, I don't have any announcements.
Any announcements, board members?
I just have a question. So with what Ms. Ryan just presented, will we add this back to the agenda for the next meeting?
Yes,
To
so we
discuss?
can make a final vote on it. Yep, it'll be on the March 3rd meeting.
I guess the only, I don't even know that it's an announcement. We recently lost a student. The young man was he graduated salutatorian in 2016. I guess I just wanted to ask if we could possibly give him a moment of silence. The young man's name was Pierre Savage, and I know that they just had his service recently, but he was a phenomenal young man, phenomenal. Really worked hard to get to where he was as salutatorian, and just had the whole world ahead of him. So it's a huge loss for all of us.
We scared of but the other student too.
William Davis. I feel like that. I know it's William.
I'm gonna get his name too. I just saw him.
And the gentleman that he's referring to is another gentleman that we recently lost. He came out in 2011. Very sudden, unexpected. Just very unfortunate.
It's just a really difficult time right now on so many levels.
Yeah, every time you turn around, you hear something unfortunate. You know, and it's speaks to a lot of what we had going on last year, you know, and as much as we want to believe that 2021 is going to be a better year, we still have to be prepared for the unexpected.
Correct.
Yes, the young man's name was William
Daniels, yes.
Yeah, class of 2011. I went to school with his mother, his aunts and uncles.
Young man always had a smile on his face, always. So yes, if we could just maybe give them a moment of silence.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. The only other thing that I wanted to announce, and it's not really an announcement, it's just a reminder, there were several of us that have attended a variety of professional development sessions over January, February. I know, Ray, you asked me about adding it to tonight's agenda. The reason we're doing it in the March 3rd is because the Pepple and Wagner session is open to those of us that signed up for it until February 25th. And quite frankly, I have not yet finished on my sessions. And so I've thought it might be easier just to take one night, do the updates, because I think 3 of you all went to the equity symposium. Mimi and I did Pepple and Wagner, and we could just knock it all out on March 3rd and then move forward. Is that good for everybody?
Good for me.
All right. Well, Mr. Jolly,
we can limit ours. If I get you the information out before, we could just do brief presentations. So
here, yeah, I was getting ready to say, to be quite honest, we really need to focus in on what we're going to do on behalf of our scholars. The Pepple and Wagner session that we went to, it's good, but you guys do an amazing job with everything that we've learned. So I know I personally wouldn't have a lot to update. So if you guys are okay with it, we can move our updates to the March 17th meeting, if that's okay.
I'm fine with that.
All right.
I think Mr. Jolly has to present is more important.
I agree. So our board updates will be on March 17th. And again, we'll keep them brief because I just don't think it's a lot new to provide an update on. So with that brings us to the end of tonight's meeting. I want to thank everybody for a great meeting. And if all hearts and minds are ready, we can put a motion on the floor to adjourn the February 17th regular meeting. May I have a second?
I second.
Everybody have a good evening. Thank you so much. Be safe and stay warm.